Good morning. Well, we got a little snow on the ground. It's we always say about the Iowa weather, just wait a day, it'll change, and that certainly is true. But uh, good morning. I want to welcome the Lieutenant Governor back. She just returned this past weekend from leading a trade mission to Thailand. I want to thank all of you for being here for our weekly press conference. Today we're going to give you an update on progress on our Fueling Our Future program. Exactly 6 months ago today, we announced this new program, which will help Iowans in obtaining additional access to higher blends of biofuels through the installation of more blender pumps around the state of Iowa. This effort will help in producing, processing, and profiting locally. The Department of Agriculture, the Department of Transportation, and Iowa State University are all key leaders in this effort, and they will continue to collaborate on this important program. Shortly after the Fueling Our Future program was announced, the Department of Agriculture sought applications for funding under the program. Based on the applications from interested retailers, the Iowa Renewable Fuels Infrastructure Board recently awarded $125,000 to the Farmers Co-op of Mount Ayr and $125,000 to the Inwood Oak Street Station to assist in their efforts to provide E10 and higher blends for Iowans. And I can tell you from my knowledge of ethanol that E30, I said E10 and I meant E30, because E30 is kind of the sweet spot where you get the best mileage. And of course, we want to move beyond the 10% ethanol to 15%, and eventually I think 30 would be the sweet spot that we'd like to see. And this is an opportunity for people to have flexible fuel vehicles to be able to show that. We're excited about the program and the progress that's being made, and we want to congratulate these biofuel leaders for their efforts in advancing homegrown Iowa biofuels. At this time, I'm pleased to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds to provide more details.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Governor Branstad, and it's great to be back in Iowa. It was a great trade mission. It was a wonderful opportunity to promote Iowa and our tremendous agriculture products, and especially Iowa's brand of safe, reliable, quality products, but also including our strength in producing biofuels. This press conference is an opportunity to showcase the success of the Fueling Our Future program in just 6 months. It's an opportunity also for us to recognize the hard work that was completed by the Iowa Department of Agriculture, the Iowa Department of Transportation, as well as Iowa State University. We also need to thank Iowa's leaders in the biofuel industry, like Darren Shalipia. I think I butchered that. I practiced. The Creston branch manager from Farmers Co-op Company, who is here with us today. So I should have just stuck with Darren. Thank you, Darren, for joining us. There are three reasons why Iowa has been so successful in the biofuels. First, our resilient agricultural industry. Second, our producers' strong work ethic. And third, Iowans choose to support locally produced biofuels for their vehicles. This new program leverages that success and advances it into the future. With the Fueling Our Future program, the existing dollars from the U.S. Department of Transportation are being used to and redirected to further leverage our state dollars in the existing renewable fuels infrastructure program. Iowa State University will work closely on the initiative to review the project, consumer perceptions, and the impact of increased access to higher blends of biofuels. At the Farmers Co-op of Mount Ayr, we're excited that the proposed plan includes a new station site, which will offer 5 ethanol options of E10, E15, E30, E50, as well as E85. And it also includes a biodiesel blending dispenser with dyed and clear B5, B10, B15, and B20. Currently, there are no blending pumps for either ethanol or biodiesel in Mount Ayr, and the closest station is about 25 miles away. So we certainly appreciate the Farmers Co-op's leadership in advancing biofuels in Iowa. And the governor and I are actually going to have an opportunity to visit Mount Ayr and see firsthand where see the new proposed site in person. I think about May 1st is when we'll be there. So at this time, I would like to invite Darren to the podium to explain in a few more details.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and good morning. I would like to start by thanking the Iowa Renewable Fuels Infrastructure Board members for awarding Farmers Cooperative Company the Federal Department of Transportation's Fueling Our Future Awards Program grant. We are excited to be in attendance today for the announcement of our new ethanol and biodiesel blending facility at our Mount Ayr location. Farmers Cooperative's roots date back to 1920 in Afton, Iowa. The company was formed to help local egg and milk producers get a better price for their products. Over the years, we have grown to be one of the leading feed, agriculture, and farm supply retailers in Southwest Iowa. The company is always looking for new and innovative ideas to better serve the people in our local communities. Last year, with the help of a grant from the Iowa Renewable Fuels Infrastructure Program, Farmers Cooperative Company constructed an ethanol blending and biodiesel dispensing facility at our Creston location. This became the first and remains to be the only facility in Union County to offer ethanol blends higher than E10. The overwhelming response that we received in support of the Creston site made us realize that a similar site at our Mount Ayr location would serve an area that is also in need of higher ethanol and biodiesel blends. Farmers Cooperative Company is dedicated to its community members, and this project allows a unique opportunity to add greater value to the commodities that our customers produce, while at the same time providing the fuel that they want to use at fair and competitive prices. We have a couple of visuals today. The first one here in front shows a new fuel system layout at our Mount Ayr location. The ethanol blending dispenser is on the south end of the main fuel island. An example of that dispenser is in the second visual. As you can see, there are 4 products through 4 hoses on each side, and those products are E10, registered E15, E30, and E85. On the north end of the main fuel island will be the biodiesel blending dispenser, and that will offer 5 different biodiesel blends through 1 hose on each side, and those blends will be B5, B10, B15, B20, and B99. The center dispenser on the main fuel island will be ultra high speed, clear B5 biodiesel with a satellite to the east to fuel large trucks at the rate of 60 gallons per minute. And then across the parking lot to the west will be another dispenser that will offer dyed B5 biodiesel for the fueling of off-road equipment. The main fuel island will be covered by a canopy with highly efficient LED lighting, and all dispensers will be served by 5 underground storage tanks buried directly west of the main fuel island. Farmers Cooperative Company looks forward to working with the Iowa Department of Agriculture, the Iowa Renewable Fuels Infrastructure Board, the Federal Department of Transportation, and Iowa State University on this project. We are very excited to get the site operational and offer these great American-made fuels to the Ringgold County area. At this time, I would like to turn the podium over to Secretary Northey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, for your leadership on this issue as well. I think it's very logical and very important that Iowa continue to lead on renewable fuels. We have from the beginning of the institution of ethanol and biodiesel, and this is a further step in that. This project will help answer some of those questions that are out there. How much additional blending will be used in both ethanol and biodiesel? What's the interest of the public? What are the infrastructure issues? Obviously, Iowa has benefited tremendously by the renewable fuels business in the state of Iowa. We have 42 ethanol plants in Iowa. We produce more ethanol than we use in gasoline. We produce about 25% of the country's ethanol. So anytime that we can increase our blending rates here, we're able to use more Iowa products, able to import less from other states or other countries. Those 12 biodiesel plants as well, and the capacity of 315 million gallons of biodiesel processing capacity also leads the country. And so being able to look at higher blends of biodiesel is very important as well. So it's important that we continue to support the industry at the state level. Certainly both biodiesel and ethanol have been challenged with some of the federal policies that are out there. Iowa continues to need to push on what we can do to increase adoption rates. And lastly, I'd like to thank as well the members of the Renewable Fuels Infrastructure Board for their hard work in addressing all the applications that came forward and being able to select these two projects that are out there. So I'll turn it back to the governor.
Bill, thank you very much. And I can just say that how proud I am that Iowa continues to lead the way in renewable fuels and reducing our dependency on foreign oil. I think this is a demonstration of, and just like you said, the demand is there if we can just have these higher blends available for the consumers. And that's the message that we delivered to the EPA as to why we need to keep this robust renewable fuel standard and not see it reduced. So we'll be glad to answer your questions.
How many applications did you get?
4 applications.
And, why were the other?
You want to come up to the?
Sure. Yeah, we got 4 applications. These were the 2 strongest applications. They were very extensive. There's a lot of contribution that the companies make as well. We're just a small part of that investment. There's opportunities to be able to learn more in some surveying that will be done as well to be able to answer some of those questions about how do we get higher blends out there. That was the whole purpose of this program, is to certainly get a couple projects on the ground and make availability higher, but also then be able to understand what it would take to grow well beyond these 2 stations over time as well. No, they were all very good projects. It requires a lot of investment by the companies that are applying, and we had fairly short time window for folks to come forward, and so we're very, very happy with these 2 projects. We're actually very happy with all 4 applications.
A question for Secretary Northey. Here we are, we're many years into the renewable fuels, and here we are in Iowa, and almost all vehicles are not flex fuel vehicles. Why haven't the Department of Agriculture, the Branstad administration, or the other administration been able to persuade the motor vehicle manufacturing industry to produce more flex fuel vehicles so that more flex
Yeah, I do
want to.
It's all right. You go ahead and answer it.
We do.
I'll wait.
We do have a lot of flex fuel vehicles, and actually one of the higher sales of any state out there on E85. And so we would love to see more. We'd love to see more availability in pumps as well. And nationally, that number continues to grow. But certainly there are some areas nationally where there are pockets with less E85 availability. So we've seen both of these grow, both the availability of flex fuel vehicles and the frequency of those out there, but also the ability, or the E85 pumps, so that people can use higher blends. So we're seeing it grow, and it's a huge improvement from where we were 10 or 15 years ago.
I would say we were real early into this. I started, we went to E85 vehicles, and in our state fleet back in the 90s, we had the biggest fleet, I think, in the whole country then. Kay Orr and I, when she was governor of Nebraska, along with Howard Buffett, actually went to Detroit to call on the auto industry to increase the amount of flexible fuel vehicles that are manufactured. By the way, it only costs about $100 more to make a flexible fuel vehicle. All the vehicles they're selling in Brazil are flexible fuel. There's no, they should be. This is a question you need to ask of the auto industry. This is, I feel very strongly about this. They ought to be making all flexible fuel vehicles. Let the consumers choose. This is something that just makes a whole lot of sense. The auto industry has grudgingly kind of moved in that direction. I think there should be a lot more of it. I can tell you, my son has an E85 pickup. My daughter has a E85 Jeep. We need to see more of this, and we have made progress, but we we need the auto industry to step up and just make all the vehicles flexible fuel vehicles. It's not that hard, it's not that expensive, and it would give the consumers the opportunity to choose for themselves.
If consumers wanted these vehicles, though, don't you think the auto industry would make them?
Well, that's the same issue that the oil companies are using. Well, if people wanted it, well, the truth is they will buy it. And as you've heard in Creston, we heard at the testimony when we had the rally at Nevada at Lincoln Way Energy. We had a gentleman that owns his own station there, and he's put in E15, and his sales have gone way up. So given the choice, and if the oil companies are not skewing the pricing so they make more money off of the renewable fuel than regular gasoline, I think you'll see the consumers make the right choice. And in Iowa, we've certainly demonstrated that, and this is just another example. Yes?
Since you're giving out grants to do the
Flexible fuels.
why don't you, if it only costs $100 to do a conversion, why doesn't the state of Iowa go out and help people convert their Toyota Camrys or Chevrolet Impalas or something?
Well, first of all, they ought to make them that way. Converting it is probably a little more expensive than making it that way as original equipment. So I don't know what the price is for conversion, but I'm sure it's considerably more than, but the actual cost for producing the vehicle that has renewable fuel capabilities, flexible fuel vehicles, is very little. Other questions?
Governor, will you conduct a review to determine whether the state is really saving money on construction projects by construction?
Well, first of all, let me say that when I took office, we faced a financial mess, and we had a lot of problems, including things that drove up costs like the requirements that the previous administration had placed on contracting, that they had to have PLAs, and as you know, by executive order, I eliminated that. That was driving up the cost 10 to 15%, and we then brought in new director of the Department of Administrative Services to see if we could make it more efficient and modernize it. I believe it would make sense for us, and the new director, I think, would be appropriate for her to review and determine the kind of savings that we have realized. But there's a lot of construction projects going on. Part of our problem under the PLAs was the only people eligible a lot of times were these huge Chicago-based contractors. And then the subcontractors, which a lot of times would be smaller Iowa companies, would be squeezed by them. This new approach, where the subcontractors are actually in a much stronger position to compete for that, means that more of the jobs are going to Iowans. And also there's been significant savings, at least that's what's been reported to me. And I think I'd be very interested in having Janet Phipps, the new director, do a review and give us an update as to how much savings this has been for the taxpayers. But when you consider the magnitude of the projects we have going on, it's critically important that we do this in the best and most efficient and economical way to protect the interests of the taxpayers and avoid some of the excesses and some of the overruns that go when you have these change of order when you have excessive number of these changes that go on.
It has reported savings from for change orders, but I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you go buy a suit at a fancy shop, do you save money because you have alteration?
Well, that I don't think is an appropriate analogy, because what we're talking about here is instead of contracting with big Chicago-based companies, we're seeing more of these contracts go to Iowa companies. That's why the contractors in Iowa were very upset with the way things had been previously managed in the previous administration and why we made these changes. We made a lot of other changes in state government too. We've reduced the number of employees by 1,000, and we've got the state budget under control. We're spending less than we're taking in. We stopped the bad budgeting practices of using one-time money for ongoing expenses. So I think we're very proud of the progress and change we made. Also, it's meant we've not had the disruptions of across-the-board cuts and purposely underfunding ongoing programs, and then having all the disruption that's involved with that.
Well, why as a manager do you accept the department's estimate based on a calculation that the Legislative Services Agency made in the very first year? It wasn't based on actual savings. There's been no real report on actual savings on these construction projects.
Well, I think the more information we can get, I think the more we'll see the benefit of making these changes. I'm very interested in getting all the information that we can, and I'm very proud of the fact that we made changes to do things differently, to do them more efficiently, and not just see that the contracts went to these big union companies in Illinois.
Governor, House Republicans have passed an education budget out of committee that does not meet what the regions were asking for in exchange for tuition fees. I'm wondering if you are going to be trying to encourage House Republicans to make good on that request, and I have a follow-up.
Well, first of all, we're interested in working with both House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, to pass the budget that we proposed. The budget that we proposed would provide a historic no tuition increase for the first time since 1975 for all in-state students at all three of our state universities. And we recognize UNI has a unique problem because they have a disproportionate number of Iowa in-state students. So we have an additional $4 million for UNI. I just spent last week up there at the University of Northern Iowa. I spent the better half of the day and met with the faculty and student leaders, and they were very pleased and are very supportive of the budget that we proposed, and that we're hopeful at the end of the day, when things get worked out in the legislature, that we will get that budget approved.
Well, House Republicans have put in their bill a tuition-free mandate, regardless of what money they end up with, tuition-free mandate in there. Would you ever try such a thing?
Well, you know, I always reserve judgment till we see bills in their final form, and we know the legislative process includes a lot of give and take between the different houses, but I'm very hopeful at the end of the day we will respect the regents' governance responsibility of the universities, and that the state will meet its obligations, and the budget I presented does that and has broad-based support from students and their parents as well as from the universities themselves.
You had a couple of department heads cancel appearances in front of the legislative oversight committee. Should they be doing more to make themselves available? And what advice is your
Well,
staff?
let me first of all, they didn't cancel appearances. They published this before they got approval that they were going to be available. So what I understand is the Senate Democrats have put out notices saying that so-and-so is going to testify before they even get a response. So they send the notice, and then within hours say we're going to have this hearing without knowing whether that person is available. That's not fair, and it's not courteous. You know, I believe that we need to, and we are trying to do everything we can to cooperate and make sure that the public gets the information they need. The thing that troubles me, and some people are interested in just politics, I'm interested in better public policy. That's why I asked my staff when this information came out about confidentiality agreements, I asked them to find out how many settlement agreements there were, how many of them included confidentiality, because this is against my policy and I want to make sure it never happens again. We signed an executive order that prohibits it, and we put a procedure in place that requires the Attorney General's office to review all settlement agreements, the departments that are affected also, as well as the Department of Administrative Services. And the House of Representatives, on a strong bipartisan vote, has approved legislation that would make that executive order, they would put that into law, and it would also eliminate the loophole that prevents personnel information from being made public. So, we have a lot of dedicated people that work very hard and are really good public servants, and they do a good job. Unfortunately, we have some that have done bad things, and that information should not be kept confidential, because then subsequent employers could hire them and they do it again. That's the kind of thing that we want to prevent. We want to protect the vulnerable people that are clients in our institutions, whether they're children or elderly. We want to make sure that people's civil rights are not violated.
Final question, Joe?
Governor, the Democrats have called a news conference for 11 o'clock, and it says, calling for expanded investigation into the scandals surrounding the Branstad administration. It says in the last few months, items have stepped forward to hold Branstad administration accountable to hush money payments, closing of the Iowa Juvenile Home, do not hire lists, and allegations of misconduct in workforce development. What's your reaction to them saying that they want a wider investigation?
Boy, this sounds like partisanship at its worst. What we really need to do is try to improve public policy. Instead of making all of these accusations, using all these charged words, they ought to be sitting down and working with us. And you know, we're at a point in the legislative session when they said they were going to be adjourned by now. They're nowhere close to being adjourned. We have important priorities like home-based Iowa, and like the anti-bullying bill, and like our apprenticeship legislation, and freezing tuition for Iowa students, and passing a budget that is balanced. Those are the kind of things that they ought to be doing in these closing days of the session, instead of playing partisan politics.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.